We've got some.
Hey, I'm Luis.
And I'm Luis.
And you're listening to the Content is Profit podcast.
We spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques from some of the top marketers in the world on how to create content that turns into profit. And today, we're bringing them to you so you can take action immediately and start creating real content momentum.
If you'd like to learn more about how to turn your content into profit, go to contentisprofit.com. Oh, yeah. All right. Fun fact. Did you know an F-16 jet can reach speeds up to 1,300 miles per hour?
What?
I know we didn't become a science podcast all of a sudden, but more of this jet thing in just a second. Today's guests we met through the one and only Pabro.
Let's go.
So you could say we're all family. Is he your fourth bro? Maybe.
Who knows? That's right. We developed a great friendship with today's guest, and we want to share the love with the audience, of course. Not only that, we want to share how he helps companies grow by making them the premier stage of their industry by only investing 3 hours per week. Insane. Just like the F-16 jets. Insane.
So you want to know why we keep bringing up the F-16 jet? Well, today's guest used to be an F-16 pilot for the Israeli Air Force.
What?
In the famous words of Italian philosopher and YouTuber David 504, Epico. Bro, that's blue. That's not red. Why do you say it? It's my thing. Not only that, he has been in leadership position in 3 startups, one which went public, and the other one that grew to over $100 million.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go.
I think I got the wrong button
Yeah,
in there.
you did.
But it's okay. This is going to be so exciting. We should have brought our Halloween Top Gun costumes. Just throwing that out there. Either way, please welcome wonderful husband and father, host of the E-Tribe podcast, and the Israeli maverick, Isar Meitis. and I must add, Arsenal fan. Let's go. Woo!
I don't know how I feel about this, guys. I mean, why? You should have brought I know, Isar, I know you brought the Barcelona jersey for the second half of the interview. I mean, yes?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Isar, first, welcome. Second,
Yes.
my brother's just a little sore, you know, that you are an Arsenal fan. And you're actually the first guest in the Content is Profit show that comes with a soccer jersey. And
Oh my God. People should have known. I mean, it's a thing, right?
It's a thing. It is a thing.
It is becoming a thing. And I remember, first we were like so nervous to actually put a soccer jersey on. Like, how stupid that is, right? Like to put a soccer jersey
we were
on.
afraid.
We were very afraid. Like, what's gonna be people gonna think? We don't care what people think because like the message is the filter. And by the way, like we have you on the show. Isar, welcome here. Why don't you share a little bit with the audience? Because we've been kind of communicating in the last few weeks here and there. We saw you in person like about a week ago. We were able to share some time together, and it was wonderful. And what you guys have to offer to the world is amazing. So I am very curious to get to know you a little bit better and find out a little bit more about your backstory.
Same. But before we start, Isar, I actually have a question. This one is, I really want Pablo to hopefully listen to this one too. But if you are the Maverick, is he Goose?
Yeah.
What's the deal right there? Yeah.
Goose dies though. I don't know if that.
we don't want Pablo to die.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not sure that's where I want to go.
Put it out there.
Yeah, I didn't refer to that part.
Do you want to know why he didn't know that? Because he hasn't seen the movie. It's
Oh my God. Okay, we're done. Sorry.
I Googled it up. I'm guilty. Isar, we want to know all about you. So, who's Isar? Like, how did you become an F-16 pilot? And then all of a sudden, bam, you're working with startups that are making 100 million.
Wow. First of all, thanks, guys. This is awesome. Like, I'm so excited to be here. Like, you guys are always so much fun. And, other than Luis has his crying baby with us, which is fun, but less fun. But other than that, it's really awesome. Wow, about me. So I in Israel, first of all, everybody joins the military, right? You don't have a choice. It's mandatory. So, and the Air Force kind of gets first pick. So I was more pulled into the Air Force than anything, even though I really wanted to. I I was the teenager that flew, little remote control airplanes and built, the plastic ones that were hanging from my ceiling. So I was definitely into the thing, but the Air Force kind of picks you, and then you go through all these steps of training. But yeah, it was really, really, really fun being an Air Force fighter pilot and then an Air Force instructor in the Air Force Academy. So this was really incredible. Like you learn so much. It's things today that I know how to appreciate a lot more, that I'm in the entrepreneurship world and being able to kind of reflect on what I learned back then. But back then, you're just trying to be better than your squadron buddies and better than the other squadrons in the Air Force and your enemies and whatever the case may be. So it's more your competitive side that feeds off of it. But yeah, when I left the Air Force, I joined a small Israeli startup that did training and simulation, and with a bunch of other guys from the Air Force. And that startup, we got our first big contract in the US, and 4 of us moved here. So it was the CEO of the company, the CTO of the company, the guy in charge of creating training content, and myself in charge of sales, marketing, business development. It's a small startup, so you wear so many hats. Like anything that brought money in was on my back. And that's it. And I came here for a 2-year relocation, and I've been here since. That was 2004. So I guess 2 years haven't ended yet.
Can we clarify legally, correct? Yeah, because I'm from Venezuela. I'm from Venezuela.
You gotta ask. I get it.
And I make that joke. People are like, huh? Like, are you here? Like, good? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'm married to an American woman. Like, we love each other. We have a child, guys. I mean, the reason we have a child is because like people continue to ask. We're like, let's make it legit. We have a kid. No, not really.
At least he'll be American, right?
At least he'll be American.
That's awesome. And for those that don't know, and I had no idea of this, another fun fact is Israel is like the country, like the most technological country, or Tel Aviv is like the capital of technology, something like that. What was it, Isar?
Yeah, so Israel has more startups per capita, so per the number of people, than any other place on the planet, by a very, very, very big spread.
Yeah,
that's insane.
So here's a question on that world, right? Because I think it's fascinating. Like a few weeks ago, we had also from Israel. We have a few guests actually. I think you're like the second or third one from this amazing country that now we're like dying to go visit.
Yeah,
because we hear it's beautiful. Why do you think that is? Like, why so many startups? Why so many people trying to dive into this amazing world of entrepreneurship? Like, do you guys feel like that's a cultural thing, wanting to solve problems for others, or because everybody goes to the military, the mindset, it's an important factor there? Because we've talked about this, military and athletes, right? Especially in this world, like tend to be very disciplined in what we do. So is that a factor? Like, why do you think this entrepreneurial spirit in your country?
I think it's a combination of different things. You touched on a few, so definitely the military service, you pulled away from your home at the age of 18. Oh. You gotta become independent. You don't have a choice, right? You not sleep. Mommy can't make the bed for you, make you sandwiches in the morning because she's not around. Yeah. And it's usually a very stressful environment. Like we see actual combat, like every single generation at very young age. So you got to learn how to deal with stress, and you got to learn how to be independent, and you got to learn how to deal with different situations, which reflect very well to the world of entrepreneurship, obviously. The other thing, I think Israelis in general, and I'm saying that I can say that because I am one, we're smart asses. We always think we know better. Like if you put 2 Israelis in a room, you'll have 4 opinions on what the right thing to do is. And you're like, how does that? But really, this is what happens. So if you put these 2 together, of like a very independent, driven, knowing how to deal with uncertainty, knowing how to deal with stress, together with I know how to do this better than anyone else.
Yeah,
you got yourself a business. Now combine that with really several decades of really successful startups that became huge, and now you got that halo effect of like, oh my God, everybody who's starting a business is making millions, which is obviously as far as possible from the truth. Most of the people start businesses end up losing millions, but that's a whole different story. Or not millions, but end up losing money. But but combine that halo effect together with I'm independent on what I'm doing. I can fight anything because I'm 21 and I don't know any better. Yeah. And I think I know how to solve every problem better than anybody else. Then you get a lot of people starting companies.
Oh, that's so awesome, man! I can't wait. Like, we have to visit for sure.
Yeah, no,
let's do a bros trip, like a bros trip to the Holy Land.
That would be amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
So yeah. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, I remember when I read that stat, I was like, what? Like, this is actually very interesting. And I read that after, having that conversation with the other two Israeli people that my brother just mentioned. And I was like, wow, like, that's very, very interesting. So thank you so much for sharing that, Isar. So I'm curious, when did the transition for you happen to what you're doing now, right? The E-Tribe and Be the Stage, because that seems a little bit different from the technological startup world.
Yeah. So what happened was, after I moved here to the US, I managed in 2007 to lose everything, like literally everything. I lost every cent I had. I was left with like $7,000 in the bank because I made a real estate investment in the worst time in history. So I'm glad this is not a real estate investment show, because this one turned out very well. But I then did an executive MBA, left my job, and started my own startup. So going back to what do Israelis do in times of crisis, you start a company. And that was another tech company doing more of affiliate marketing, not exactly, but to save us time, that's what it was. Yeah. But my main investor in that company brought me over to his company, and he was the founder and the CEO of the largest wholesale travel company in the United States, the third largest in the world. And he basically said, I really like you. I like you as a person. I like what you do. Come in parallel to the startup. I want you to kind of start an e-commerce B2C business for our wholesale company. And so for a while, I did both. I was running the startup and I was running the thing within his company. Yeah. And that was the first nail in the coffin of the startup, because I was focusing more and more and more on the other thing and less on the startup. Yeah. But the business within the travel company grew year over year over year over year, and it hit $100 million in sales, which is really funny because people are like, oh my God, you did $100 million. But the truth is, first of all, I had the support of a company that was much, much, much bigger. And second, in that company, I was always 10% of the company. So when we sold, I did 100 million, the company did $1 billion. So every discussion that I had, I was an executive in charge of e-commerce, said in the executive meetings that every time I was like, yeah, we're not interested in what you have to say. Like, how much did you make this year? $60 million. Yeah, whatever. Just, are you profitable? Yes, fine. Don't bother us with what you do. Because so I was always the guy that was making too much noise for the size of profit that he was bringing into the company. But then that company sold, and it was a very interesting process. It's a big private equity company that came and bought our company and our two largest competitors from overseas. So one from the UK and one from Spain, to create the largest by far wholesale travel company in the world. And then, you go through this merger from hell where you have very, very different cultures and very different people and very different personalities and processes. And there's kind of like three of everything, and everybody's fighting who's going to lose his job and who's going to, well, to be fair, I learned a lot. I learned a lot, but it definitely wasn't for me. Like even in the company I was before, it's a big company, right? It's the $1 billion company, offices in 40 countries, but it was very entrepreneurial in spirit. Like each and every one of the executives kind of had his own team and was running like its own little company. And for me, it was definitely like that because most of the company was doing something very, very different. Yeah. And now it came from me and a bunch of guys that were like an amazing team. I had an amazing, amazing group of people with me in Last Minute Travel, and that we could do this and decide what we want to do next week and make it happen. 6 months, you can't do anything because there's too many freaking organizations and pieces and departments that you have to coordinate with. And I'm like, okay, I can't stand this. And I left. Yeah. And And when I left, I ended up not knowing what to do. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take my time for a while and chill. But I guess I don't know how to do that. So very quickly, I started investing in a few companies and helping a few other companies. And I really enjoy training people and helping people, nurturing businesses and so on. So I'm like, oh, maybe I'll write a blog about entrepreneurship, but I couldn't get myself to write. And that's how I started the A-Tribe podcast. And it really started as a hobby. And then in March of this year, remember back in the day when there were actual live conferences that you can go to and meet people and hug them and have fun and do karaoke and stuff?
I don't know if I remember anymore.
Yeah. So in March of this year, which is insane, I went to Podfest, and that's when I ran into Pablo, and we had a blast. And the whole show the whole conference gave me a lot of confidence that I'm like, maybe there's more than just fun to this whole podcasting thing. Which, by the way, my dad still doesn't get. Sorry, Dad. I know you'll listen to this. But.
That's funny.
That's incredible. So there's a few points there because, I mean, obviously through your entire career, you go through some challenges, right? And sometimes when we started this entrepreneurship journey, I remember like we tend to avoid that conflict, right? Like, and we've learned that, through it, right? And I think like us, like individually, we're like more prone to it because we grew up playing soccer and that was the objective. And, the same relationship, right? Like military and athletes, right? You are encouraged to make these mistakes and go through them. But in general, like with the community that we've been chatting, like that seems to be an issue with people that have not experienced something like that, right? And then you go into this entrepreneurship world or, company, and then this massive merger, which can be a challenge. I remember like one of my very first jobs out of college, I was coordinating a ropes course. And we had two groups coming in. It was Clorox and some other local company that they purchased, and it was a merger, right? And they brought them in this like high course, like ropes course kind of challenge where you're like hanging 50 feet off the ground with this harness, right? And they put him up there, and I had like 7 like college students guiding them through this challenge. And they mixed them up because they wanted to solve these issues, right? And they're like, wow, these guys are like grown-ups and trying to like communicate in a different way outside of the office to make sure this happens. So, and this was a group of maybe 40 people. So I can't even imagine the challenge that you had to go through with the big company like you and your colleagues, right? So that says a lot about you. And then you quickly identified, hey, there's a new opportunity I want to follow. I'm okay with this. Let me, pivot and change lanes and make this happen. So that's super important. Those are good qualities that we've seen over and over with the guests that we've been bringing. So I'm very, very excited to see what else you guys are cooking, right? And then on starting the podcast, right? Like you said, I could not, bring myself to write. Yeah. Neither do I. And we tried this blog thing for like 3 years with something called Mass Life, which, by the way, is coming at some point in a podcast forum as well, like second show. But I identify. So, and then at the end, you said there's so much more than just like fun, right? Like, and I think that's where like this new adventure starts. So I just wanted to do a quick recap for those listening, because I identify with your story. There's some elements in there that we've seen here and there, and I absolutely love it. I don't know if you have a question. Yeah, good. Was that good, Fonzie?
That was pretty good recap. That was pretty good recap. I'm
nailed it.
I'm curious, Isar, because usually when you come from these bigger companies, I feel especially a few years back, content maybe wasn't that prominent or it wasn't a priority, right, in those companies. So I'm curious to understand where your tendency, I guess, to now, let me start writing. Okay, it's not this. Let me start podcasting. Where did that come from? Was it organically for you? Did you start, seeing people around using content and started maybe seeing a trend? Because I know, and we're going to dive into this later on about Be the Stage, right? We're going to start talking about that. And that has to do a lot with content. So I'm curious, when did that, the content bug got to you?
So great question. I think it was a very long process actually for me. So I love to learn. So I read a lot of books and I listen to a lot of podcasts and I do a lot of research. And what do you usually read? Different blogs, right? That's what you end up reading. So I did that forever. It's not something that happened now, but now because I I left the company, it was the first time in my life I really had a lot of time. So I learned even more, and I could invest even more in just learning. So I went from listening to 2 podcasts a week to listening to 3 podcasts a day. I went from reading, 3 or 4 articles a week to reading 5 or 6 articles a day on topics that I was interested in.
Yeah.
And the whole podcast really started by me just enjoying doing this. I just enjoy talking to interesting people. It's really phenomenal, right? And I said that on somebody else's podcast, that if I find somebody that I find interesting on LinkedIn, let's say, or Facebook, and I'll send them a private message saying, hey, you look interesting, I want to talk to you, social services may show up and take away my kids. But if I send them, the same exact person, a message saying, hey, I've got a podcast, I want to interview you, they all say yes.
Absolutely.
Every single one. And obviously I didn't know that, right? My epiphany moment that led me to Pablo, that led me to Be the Stage, which is a great segue for our conversation, was I recorded my first interview in July of last year.
Wow.
I did absolutely nothing with it until January of this year. Because I kind of knew, again, I'm like, yeah, maybe I should do this. I told you I was trying to write a blog. By the way, I have a blog. It's very successful. I love it. The content there is phenomenal. But the way I write it kind of like as I get the ideas and the base for every article from an interview. And then I go and reverse engineer it into an actual SEO proper process article, which I'm like, oh, I don't have to invent what I write about. I actually have some guru to tell me, give me ideas and notes on what to write about. So that's how I write my blog. But
It's beautiful.
When I recorded that first episode, I flew to Israel, and I have a lot of startup friends in Israel. I'm like, oh, this would be awesome. So I went online to Amazon and I bought a lapel mic, a split lapel mic for $30. So you can imagine what was the quality of that microphone. And I plugged it into my old DSLR camera, which is okay. Yeah. And that's how I recorded the interview. And the sound quality is horrific, but it was really cool. And I've done like 3 or 4 of those in Israel with people that I know. And then I just sat on it for very, very long. But as I kind of did more and more research and kind of like, I grew into like, I can do this. And if anything, I'll have fun doing this, right? Yes. And I was lucky enough, really, I was blessed that out of that transaction that the company got sold, I had enough money, enough runway to figure stuff out. I wasn't stressed to make money. And so I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. Like start a podcast and see what happens. And what happened was, and now I'm kind of going to that epiphany moment, is one of the people that I found, and I just research people literally by keywords and stuff, has an incredible life story. He's an incredible entrepreneur. And he was on the stage at TED, the one you get invited for. He gets paid, $20,000 or up to be on stages. Wow. And I sent him a message on LinkedIn and said, hey, will you come and be a guest on my show? And he said, yes. Absolutely. And I'm like, what the fuck can I say fuck on the show? Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I mean, you just
this is live. I just did, right? You can't edit this. This is sorry.
We can,
like,
that's part of the magic.
We can, but we don't do it.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, what the hell just happened? I'll make it PG-13. What the hell just happened? Why did he say yes? Now, it's not only that he says yes, and you know that because you have a show and you're running a show. People ask me, oh, they just come, like nobody, like how many listeners do you have? I'm like, I've done probably 80, like live, there's probably like 50, but I've recorded probably about 80 shows. Not a single person asked me how many people are actually listening.
Yep.
Can we repeat that again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait a second. I'm even gonna stop the music. Yeah. Go ahead. The stage is yours.
You got the stage. Can we repeat that again, please?
Yes. I've recorded more than 80 episodes with very interesting high-end people, and not a single person asked me how many people listen.
That's right. Thank you.
Moment right there. Let's go. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a false perception that people have is like, oh, no, they're going to ask me. I cannot reach out to these people because they're asking me, how many listens I have. And yes, there are people out there that they ask those questions. But I would say is a very small minority that does it, right?
I mean, we're gonna put it on our side too. Just like you, very very impressive amount of episodes, right? Like, and for us, I think you're episode 1 of 8, which we're very proud of. I think one person out of those 100 guests have asked about the traffic or the metrics. Like, nobody cares. Like, you have this amazing opportunity to be on stage, right? It's a digital stage, but sharing these amazing conversations for an hour, right? Like, I mean, you, for example, I think like without Pablo or without this platform, it would have been very challenging for us to have this conversation with you, for example, right? Like, 2 kids with the backwards hats, like a Power Ranger helmet, like in the corner. A lot of people might be like, who are who the hell are these kids, right? Or people like Todd Brown, for example. Todd Brown charges like between $30,000 to $50,000 an hour just to have a conversation with him, and we had the pleasure to have him on the show, right? And like him, many others. So this is a great opportunity. So Isar, why is this such a great opportunity today? And what's be the stage?
Wait, but he didn't finish the story.
I'm just gonna leave it as a hook here.
We got so excited that we interrupted you. I'm sorry.
My bad.
No, this is great. And again, it's all phenomenal insights, right? So that was my aha moment, and it happened right around Podfest, which kind of gave me a few more tools because, again, I was completely clueless. Funny story, and you guys like funny stories, so I'll tell the funny story. I go into Podfest, and there is like, you've been there, right? You've been there as well.
Yeah, we were there.
We were.
Yeah. I don't know how we never met.
We missed you by like maybe like 2 minutes. So, maybe we like even walked.
Yeah. Exchange some potential COVID germs between us.
And then you saw the 2 kids with the backwards hats, and you're like,
"Who are like, well, of course." So there's a guy, and he works. He's been podcasting for like forever, and he works for one of the big podcasting host companies, and he has a show where he reviews other shows. Being an F-16 pilot, I'm like, it's all about debriefing. It's literally all about debriefing. That's how you make progress in life. So I come to him, it's like, I would love you to review my show. And he's like, are you sure? Because I'm pretty harsh. I'm like, that's what I need. I want somebody to tell me what I'm not doing right. I don't have a clue. Like, what the hell do I know? I've been listening to podcasts, but I don't have a clue. It's like, okay, I'll do it. And I totally forgot about it. And like 2 months later, I get an email. I've done the review. Here's the link. Go and listen to the thing. And he butchered me. Now, so far, so good. Okay, so he butchered me. That's fine. It's great lessons learned. Now I know what not to do, right? The problem is about 6,000 people a week listen to his show, and about 2 listen to mine. Wow. And so now anybody that was searching the E-Tribe podcast got to his review. Not to my show. And I'm like, no, why the hell did I do this? It took me probably like 3 or 4 months before I actually passed him in the ranking everywhere. So now they find me instead of him.
Wow.
Incredible.
So anyways, I had that epiphany. I'm like, wait a minute. I can get to anyone. Like from a business perspective, this is so profound, right? I can send a message to anybody on the planet. And because I have a platform, or to use my new terminology, because I have a stage, people want to talk with me.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, what do I do with this? And I started researching if other people found that out, right? I'm like, I'm not the only person on the planet that figured out that the fact that I have a show and that I have access to people can be turned into a business benefit. And I researched, and I found a few people that actually figured out how to turn that concept into a business. One of them is Pablo. Mm-hmm. And actually Pablo and I hooked back in Podfest, and we did karaoke together, and we had a lot of fun together. So when we started talking, we're like, we already knew we kind of enjoy each other's company, and we kind of have the same wavelength in our very slow brains. And so we kind of clicked, and the rest is history, right? So
by the way, you guys don't have slow brains. You guys are running 1,000 miles per hour, doing amazing things for your shows, for your platforms, for your companies, for your partners, right? Like we're somehow related with you guys as well, because we do business together. So yes, you guys are not slow by any means. Nothing. I know that you're trying to play humble, but you guys are killing it. So I just want to put out there for the audience, so they know.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate it. I stand corrected.
Absolutely. Corrected.
So-
Feedback. It's all about the debrief.
About the debrief. Perfect. It's all about the debrief. You're right. So what's Be the Stage? So the idea is very, very simple. And again, it just leverages what I just said, but then builds the whole ecosystem around it. So the number one thing is having your own stage. So what we do, we build digital stages for other companies, their brand, their stage. So a live show, just like we're doing this, right? So we're doing this on StreamYard, or you do it on Zoom and then you push it out. It doesn't really matter, right? It's a live show. And the reason we do this as a live show is because then people can ask questions. So you can get a lot more interactions from other people. But we'll get to that in the end, kind of as we close the loop. So we have a live show. In the live show, somebody from our company, from Be the Stage, Pablo, myself, or a professional host is like the professional MC, the hype man of the show. But then somebody from our client organization is the face of the actual show. He becomes the face of the company. And we host every week different kinds of people on our client's stage. So what kind of people do we host? We host, number one, authority figures from their industry, right? So different experts with no names for two main reasons. Reason number one, it builds the authority of the stage, right? If I tell you, hey, come to my podcast, and you're a really big known somebody, you may actually question that. But if I tell you, hey, come to my podcast, by the way, last week I interviewed Elon Musk, that's it. No more questions, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I didn't, by the way, but he's on the list. So if somebody has a hook, like, I'm interested.
Yeah, let us know too. Yeah.
I mean, that is a key example of leverage right there, right? And marketing is all about leverage. And, we can't even tell you how many times we've used that where we want to bring someone and we start dropping names, right? And it is a tool at the end of the day that you have to bring these other people and showcase them. So sorry, Isar, continue.
No, perfect. So we bring authority figures, A, to elevate the stage, but B, because as you know, you can get to ask them questions for free, and otherwise they would charge you $2,000 to $20,000 an hour, which you probably won't pay. So it's fantastic. So it gives you access, and it builds the leverage, and it builds relationships that opens a lot of doors in the future. The second thing that we do is we bring success stories. So happy clients, customers, partners of the company to tell their story, because that builds trust, right? They're not just telling stories. They're actual real clients really enjoying, benefiting, growing, saving, becoming more healthy, depending what the case is with our client, because of the services or the products that our client provides. And then the third thing is we invite potential clients and partners that otherwise our client will never have the opportunity to have an hour one-on-one at a C-suite level with those companies, definitely not on weekly basis.
Yeah.
So what we've really created, if you think about days before COVID, is we have a keynote speaker opportunity to our client on a show in front of their industry with their dream client every single week.
Yep.
That's mind-blowing.
Yes.
Like, to do this back in the day, again, when you had to do this, I had to be in a conference, I had to have a booth, I had to sponsor the show to be a keynote speaker. This is like $35,000, what I just said.
Yep. Absolutely.
And the time it consumes to orchestrate all that, you can do this twice a year, maybe. Now you do this weekly, and all we require from that person, from that C-suite level person, is like 2 to 3 hours a week, because we do one prep session before each call to kind of prep who's the guest, what we want to ask him, what's the direction, how do we make it interesting for the crowd and him and the guest, and 1 hour to do the show. Yeah, that's it.
Absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead. No, it's your show. I mean,
No, we're like, the secrets.
Yeah, we want to know more.
So here's how this is so wonderful, right? Like, because I feel like on the online community, this might be a topic that, you know, some people might be talking about, and it's very powerful, right? And a lot of people understand how to share audiences. And, you know, if my dream client, this other person has also the dream client, how can we have mutual beneficial conversation? And, you know, how can we partner up? I feel like it happens very organically, right? But as we transition, this is a very, very powerful medium that allows a lot of people to have their own voice, to communicate to the right audience, right? And now, how can we bring this solution, right, to these massive companies, not only for the audience aspect of it, because yes, like it can help, but on the back end, what are those conversations that are happening on the back end, so you can do something different? Like, you know, obviously about JWB, Jacksonville Wealth Builders, and the program that Pablo started with them, and it's amazing. It's like, it's what you guys do. And just to have the mayor of the city in that conversation, what could happen that could, you know, bring a massive shift in that company, right? Or the president of the Chamber of Commerce, or, you know, talking the other day with Chuck Petit, the opportunity to create this show around the companies that Republic is, you know, helping finance with the crowdfunding equity. So it's amazing, like, and the possibilities are endless on why this platform is so powerful, right? Like, and just the technology is allowing us to efficiently create this stage every single week.
Yeah, I love it. You know, yesterday I was actually having a conversation with a friend from back home that he graduated from Berkeley. He's a musician, and he's trying to, you know, get his name out there. And we started talking, and he's like, you know, I'm trying to do X, Y, Z. He'll tell me all his plans, and I was like, look, like those are great plans. I think they're good, but look at the resources and everything you need to do, all the effort that you need to put in front to, you know, take this and like skyrocket it to the moon, right? And then I told him, like, I'm just gonna share what we've been doing with like Pablo, right, with you and you guys, because now it's be the stage, right? So I'm like, let me share with you that. And I told him about this podcast, you know, start building relationships with influential people, that by doing that, now people are gonna perceive you as the authority in the industry as well. His mind was blown. He's like, dude, like he kept texting me for like 2 hours after the call, and he's like, dude, I can't stop thinking of ideas. This was so enlightening. And I was like, and you know, it's because most people think podcasting is only to either profit from sponsorships, right? Like, let me do it the long way, which is let me start a show, wait for people to find me, or promote it out there, and then try to build an audience, and then eventually get a sponsorship, or build your audience, right, which takes time again, and sell something to that audience. Like, those are usually the two types of like monetization skills that you see it, like people searching with podcasts. But this is a whole different level, because there's so many wins around the strategy that you're talking about, right? And I wrote two specifically here, which are relationships, again, with those people that have a very high authority, and the other one is like you're doing literally frictionless touch points with some of the most influential people in your industry, because now you have them before the show, you're prepping them. During the show, you're talking 1 hour with them, building rapport. After the show, you're communicating with them, letting them when the show drops. I mean, you know the saying, it takes between 7 and 12 touch points to make a sale. Well, in this process, you already got all those touch points and more, and you build an amazing relationship that is going to be long-term beneficial for both parties. And guess what? It didn't feel salesy or anything. I mean, you might not even want to sell anything to that person, but that relationship, is profit in itself, right? And that's what we call in terms, content is profit. And profit is not necessarily just the money, right? For us, the relationships are even more important than just the monetary side of things, right? So I love this topic. Keep going, Isar. Keep going.
No, I want to press the button that goes, but I need those. Where do you get those buttons? Never mind.
We'll talk about tools and secrets after the show.
So where was I? Okay, so we have the show, and the show really gives us authority for the company as the brand in the industry.
Yeah.
But also it gives us access, right, to people that otherwise they wouldn't have access to. So that's kind of the summary of the stage. The second thing that happens that we provide, and you guys know this very well because you provide that service to us, is we take that content that was a live show and we repurpose it to any channel on the planet. So it becomes a blog, it becomes a podcast, it becomes a YouTube channel, it becomes 50,000 small snippets for different social media in the right formats.
Yeah.
And what that does, and I'll touch on a subset of this in a minute to kind of complement what you said, Fonzie, but what that does is now people see you everywhere, and they just see you. They see you with those experts everywhere all the time. So again, it helps build that authority. It helps keep you top of mind of anybody in the industry because you're showing up 4 times a day, any channel they open.
Yeah.
And the biggest trick in the book here, and it's really, we do this more as a service, but we really benefit from it as well, is that we highlight the guests. We make sure to pull out segments, short segments, that shows something very interesting, very important, very critical, a great tip, a great depth of the guest. And we send it to them so they can push it on social media. Yep. Now we give them the benefit of enjoying the platform, the thing they participated in, and they share it. So now their audience, which by definition has to do something with the industry of our client, right? Because otherwise we wouldn't invite them, gets to see this and they're like, oh, what is this? Now, so this is the second step, is really repurposing all that content across many, many different channels. And the third component is building a community. So we build a community in Facebook of all the people that touch this from any angle and any point. People who's been on the show, people ask questions to the show, people clicked on the thing, anybody who wants to communicate with that company now joins that Facebook group. And the beauty of this, it creates this snowball effect that doesn't stop growing because now the people from the group know every time there's a show. They know who's going to be the guest. They're like, oh my God. And we obviously get to tell them who it is. So they're like, I get to listen to this guy for free. But now I'm going back. I told you I'll go back to this. That's why it's live. Because you're Joe Schmo, get to ask one of the biggest names in the industry I care about questions directly every week. When was the last time, let's take JWB again because you used that example. When was the last time, when do you know anywhere on the planet where you can jump on a Facebook call and ask a C-suite person from a $350 million company questions every week?
Yeah.
It just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So we provide that value to the community and we do the same thing. So let's say now me, Isar, I'm a guest and I want to ask a question and they bring me live. And now you see me in the 2 screens, like those of you who are watching this versus listening to this, or you've been on any Zoom calls, which you have on a million in the last 2 days, 2 people, one next to the other. We make sure that's what you see. You see the person that is just somebody from our community, or not our, right? It's our client's community.
Yeah.
Together with one of the biggest authority in the industry, and they have a conversation for 2 minutes. And that gets posted and tagged to that person from that community.
Yeah.
Now he's a fan for life. He's going to share this anywhere he can because it's him and whoever that authority figure is, right? So this becomes this snowball of continuous creation of value. And it's really value because it's real questions of real people, of real partnerships, of real business with real experts. It's not, 2 people just chit-chatting on random stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I love this because, we've seen the evolution of that community aspect that you say, and, we bring the community along the ride, like with content, like it's in the middle of everything. And we've seen it, where we saw 5 people in that call, right now they're having 50, 60 people tuning in every single week. And that translates not only on that snowball effect that you mentioned, but also on revenue and profit for the company because, they which is why these companies are doing this thing, right? Like they're providing this amazing value to their audience. They're answering the questions that the audience has directly to them. Like the audience doesn't have to go through a help desk ticket. They can just go to the CMO of the company and ask these questions, right? And then this massive ball of content just goes out to the world to help more people with those questions, right? And if we don't ask them through the content, then we can invite them into the community and be a part of it. And then this whole thing revolves, and we've seen the progress. It's just amazing, mind-blowing. Like just us by going through this effect, immediately I'm like, we need to go buy rental properties, right? Somebody had never ever thought about buying rental property, and that's the effect, right? That can happen because the benefits. Name it rental property, name it technology, name it phones, name it content, whatever the product is, right? That the message is going to be the filter, but at the same time, you have the opportunity to interact with this amazing person up there.
Yeah, going back to relationships and touch points. Now we flip the script and we're talking now about the audience. You're building a relationship with the audience, and with the podcast, with all those pieces of content, with the live Q&A. Now you're doing extra touch points with that same community. So you're doing touch points with the authority figure you're inviting to your podcast, and you're building a relationship and, getting touch points with the audience as well. I mean,
hashtag mind blown.
Yeah, it's a win-win-win situation. Whatever you see it, we've said it plenty of times. We have never, at least right now, the moment we haven't experienced a negative thing out of creating content and having a show.
So Isar, let me go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I love how you turned it back to relationships, right? At the end of the day, this is what it's all about. Mm-hmm. People are doing business with people.
Yeah.
All the marketing tricks and blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, long-term business is about long-term relationships and real relationship with real people. It's not about anything else. And, shameless plug, warning, we just launched a website, and the website is bethestage.live, which makes sense. And literally the name of the page, right, before you turn it into a homepage, it needs to have a name. The name of the page is Building Business Relationships at Scale. That's the name of the page. That is now our homepage. So it's really just about that. It's about how do you create an environment that enables you to nurture and grow relationships at scale. Everything else is an outcome of that. And I'm the best proof of this. I started a podcast in January of this year having zero agenda, none, zero. I now sit on 3 different boards of different companies. I invested in a few different companies. I'm invited to speak in different places. I am starting an incredible business with an amazing partner. And all of this, 100% of this, happens because I'm working on building relationships, not asking for anything. Literally, when I went to that conference in March, people are like, "Oh, how do you monetize your conference?" I'm like, "Can you monetize? Can you monetize a podcast?" Yeah, you can do this. So how are you going to monetize the podcast? I'm like, I'm not. I'm just enjoying meeting interesting people.
Yeah.
But the back end of this just opens so many doors and generates so many opportunities. Yeah. That's where the magic happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, thank you. Yeah.
Standing ovation from the crowd.
Thank you so much, guys. I really want to bring it home, and we have 2 more questions that we want to ask you. But for the audience, if you're listening right now, just think about the possibilities. Just like the story that Fonzie said with this musician, right? Bring it down. Maybe you're not at a place where your corporation can do it, or you might not own a corporation, right? But you can do this at a different scale. We were talking with a friend of ours. Actually, he's not a friend; he's a cousin, right? That he's thinking about acting.
So your cousin is not
our
your friend?
Cousin. No, he's not my friend.
Is not your friend.
Nope, just a cousin. Just cousin. Sorry, Victor. No, I'm kidding. But we're 10 days apart too, and we look very similar. But I'm tiny and ugly, and he's tall and handsome. So that's why he's an actor. Anyway,
and he's not called Luis. That's why you couldn't really make him a family.
So, but he's we were having this conversation, and he's like, "Hey, man, I'm having a really hard time having conversations with the script writers, the producers." And I'm like, "Start a show, start a podcast about acting, about this thing." And you know what? Who's going to be your guest? Your guest is going to be the producers. Your guest is going to be the screenwriters. Your guest is going to be the directors of whatever, because then you can talk about acting, which you guys are both passionate about different things. And then on the back end, you're going to have a conversation. It's you're going to develop that relationship. And then you're going to have every single week, if you do 3 shows a week, you're going to have 3 very good opportunities to do it. So 150 opportunities a year to go out. One, you could probably find one out of those, right?
Absolutely.
So again, like bring it down. How can you apply this? And get in contact with us. Send Isar a quick message. Send us a quick message. We do it on our own way as well. It's a little bit different than what you guys do, and they both have wonderful results. So I encourage you to try to take this lane, and
go visit Isar's website,
BeTheStage.live. Have a conversation with them.
We
got it at the right time.
That was like in sync and everything.
Live.
Okay,
I got it.
No,
Definitely don't hire me for your jingles. All right, Isar. So, what's an action point other than that? If people want to find out more, obviously, BeTheStage.live. But what's an action point for people trying to start, their relationships at scale? What can they do today?
So first of all, one more thing. I have my own podcast, right? That is the etribe.com.
Yeah.
So it's the website and the podcast that is called the eTribe. By the way, last week was an incredible episode about this topic with the Biz Bro.
We had a blast. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So, we did the conversation, like a month ago, or even more, but it went live last week. But yeah, there's a lot of information on the eTribe on how to do these things. But I think in general, and people's biggest fear is just to be out there, right? That's just like, well, I don't know. I'm not confident. We all, like, without doing that first step, you don't make it to the second, to the 10th, and then to the 1,000, right? Yeah. And I was there this year. I went to Podfest as not having a freaking clue. I told you, I got butchered when my show was like evaluated by somebody who's worth something. But consistency gets you there, and learn. Like, spend the time. And when you get to a certain level, start spending money. You can start for free for sure. I did most of my learning for free. But then you get to the point, you're like, okay, I'm ready for the next level. And even that's when you're saying, okay, I'm going to invest in myself and in my business, and the course is like $300, go spend $300.
Yeah.
That could build you a future that could generate hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a year.
Yep.
Spend the money.
Absolutely.
And so I think invest in yourself. Don't be afraid to be out there. And I don't know how many, you obviously know Pat Flynn because you mentioned him earlier, but Pat Flynn may be one of the most famous, interesting, long-term lasting podcasters out there. And Pat Flynn, every now and then, plays his very first episode. Did you ever hear it? It's the funniest thing ever. So Pat Flynn's first episode goes something like this. It's like, okay, there's this thing called podcast, and I really want to do this, and I don't have a clue what I'm going to talk about, and I just bought a microphone, so this is me kind of like testing the microphone. I know I'm going to report a podcast, so I hope you guys will listen. Like, there's zero content. Like, he doesn't talk about
nothing.
it. But he literally released that into the world, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
And now he has that perspective of, he's been through, I don't know how many shows and how much, like, he makes 7 figures every year, not from courses and whatever, just from affiliate things through his podcast. And he gets to talk to anybody he wants on the planet. So he wouldn't be Pat Flynn without that first completely stupid episode. So don't be afraid. The technology there is free. The tools are free or almost free. And you can create amazing content. Just start, build a process, learn from other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we love that part of the message, which is you start, because we were there as well, right? We spent literally years knowing that we had to publish. Yeah, we didn't do it because we were afraid of, being judged or trying to be perfectionist, which at the end of the day, it was just an excuse because we were just afraid of getting in front of the camera. And then we just decided, we got to do it. If we want to move forward, we have to publish. We have to create content. You hear it from all these extremely successful entrepreneurs. They're like, create content, publish. Well, guess what? We started doing it, and same as you, we started this year as well, right? And it has been life-changing to say the least.
Yeah, guys, get on it. Like, publish frictionless. What's your minimum viable content, right? Like, start there. And for a podcast, I mean, we told the story maybe once or twice. Our dad in his 70s with a phone. he's recording stories and he's publishing them into the world, right? Like it doesn't take much, right? You can get started like that, and then little by little you can start improving on the quality. But this allows you to have conversations with the people that can make a change in your life, right? Like other than your family, obviously. You can bring your family into your show too, but kind of like what I do with Fonzie here.
I think it's the other way around.
Yeah.
I bring you here.
Yeah, it's okay. Here's our last question, and probably our favorite question. Where will you be if you did not publish?
Wow. Do you want the answer you want to hear or don't want to hear? I'll be on the beach drinking margaritas. That's the answer you don't want to hear. Don't want to hear.
That's okay. That's okay.
No. I wouldn't be anywhere. Like this 100% of what I'm doing today, again, including things that are quote unquote totally unrelated, right? Sitting on the boards of tech companies. But they wouldn't find me and I wouldn't find them unless I had the podcast.
Yeah.
And so 100% of what I'm doing today to support my family comes from the fact that I started publishing content earlier this year.
That's amazing. Wow.
Oh, well, I was going to do this one. But
Yeah,
that's also
I
a
think-
going moment.
Yeah,
That's also a going moment.
we need to.
You need to label the buttons. Yeah, definitely. You need
Yeah,
to.
Oh, this makes it more fun. We don't really know what's happening.
It's like random. Just go.
Random.
But yeah, that's amazing.
Wow,
Thank you for
yes.
sharing that, Isar.
Yeah, and again, we do it for us. Like every time we listen to your answers, like we continue to publish, and it pushes you forward. And it's all about the consistency, getting out there, building your audience, creating these amazing relationships on the back end, and then the sky's the limit, right? Like I want to put a date on the second time that you come into the show in like a year, because like that first guarantees that we're both gonna be, publishing a year
Sure.
from now. And second, I am so interested to see, where we'll be like in a year from now. If the progress had been such an amazing and incredible thing until now, in a year, just
Yeah.
imagine, right? Like Fonzie said, when he started thinking about publishing about 5 years ago, where would we be, if we actually started then, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
start now.
Funny enough, yesterday I was, scrolling through Facebook, and you know how Facebook gives you the memories.
Yes.
And the memory of the first 45 live that we did. It was like episode 4 of the very first 45 live that we did popped up, and I was like, oh, let me watch it. And I was like, oh man, like,
Yeah.
I was like, that's crazy. Like the change, like you can see it in the voice,
I
and
mean,
the tone, everything.
Your beard was to your belly too. So
yeah,
that
my
was-
beer was way.
Oh
way-
my God. Now I gotta watch it.
Yes, go do it, dude.
I want to say one thing before you guys kick me out. For those of you who are not working with the Biz Bros, as somebody who is working with them, it's an incredible experience. So first of all, what you get is the top of the line service. But we keep on talking about producing content. Your content needs to be seen. So you can record a podcast or have a live show or go live. If you don't have means to distribute it to where your audience is, I wouldn't say it's pointless, but it's not as effective. So what you guys are doing is absolutely incredible. I think both the quality as well as the relationship, right? It's just like, doesn't matter what happens. It's always fun working with you guys. So if you guys are not doing this, go check this out. Go check out what they do. And if you're into creating and repurposing content, that's the place to go.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you. Means a lot.
Means a lot.
I actually wanted to add this it was the comment before that. I almost
Like
forgot.
I wanted to add this to the question that was in like minute 20. So
My brother
rewind.
said to bring you in like a year to see the progress, right? I mean, yes,
that's for sure.
that's for sure. But also, we need to do a 2v2 with you and Pablo. I think that would be
Ooh, yes.
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
By the way, for those listening next week, Pablo is coming.
Pablo's coming.
Pablo.
For the second time after like I think it's like 90 episodes or
He's
so.
the only guest, first guest in the
In the
Content is
show.
Profit show,
Yeah.
and the only guest that haven't gotten an epic intro. So we owe him.
Pressure on.
We need to give him a cool intro.
Yeah, so it's coming to the show. Let us know if we did a good job. Obviously, with this one, we killed it because Isar is here and he killed it. So he made it look very good. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Epic jersey you got going on
Yeah,
there.
well, except that. Anyways, Isar, how can people find you? How can like they learn more about you, the business, like connect with you, have these amazing conversations? Where can they go?
So first of all, I have the benefit that I'm the only Isar Meitis on anywhere you go. So if you look for Isar, ISAR, last name Meitis, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever, you're going to find me. So, and I don't have a brother called Isar, so that helps. I mean, to find the right one.
I was gonna say I cannot say that.
So that's one. Two, the eTribe website. If you want to see just a podcast, then you can just look for the eTribe podcast or the eTribe/podcast. You'll just find all the episodes over there and all the articles that I wrote that we mentioned earlier.
Yes.
And the new baby, which was literally born last night.
Yes, let's go.
Be the stage.live, which is going to be incredible. It already is. I mean, the crazy thing is we already have live clients, as you kind of understand from this conversation, and we did not have a website. So I need to thank you guys for kind of like a little backstory. They asked me, oh, you can come either today or in 2 weeks and talk about your new company. And I'm like, let's do it now because this will force me to finish the website because otherwise it will be forever.
Another one of those principles that we talk about, right? Like put that event forward that pulls you forward. So I'm glad it got done. We received it. We're going to leave all the links right in the description. So just scroll down, put it right there, click it, tap it, whatever you do, just go.
That's right. And I'm going to leave a hook for next episode when we bring you and Pablo together because I want to talk about how everybody wants to be the king, but it is more important to be a kingmaker. So if you guys are interested on how to getting to know more about that, just leave us a comment, drop us a DM, slide a DMs at BizBrosCo or the eTribe and talk to Isar and, be the stage.live. Just go everywhere.
Just click
all the links at the bottom.
And with that,
20 tabs on top of your browser. It's okay.
And with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning into the Content is Profit podcast. Go ahead and subscribe. Smash that subscribe button and follow us on social media at BizBrosCo.
That's right. And if you find this episode impactful, and I'm sure you did, don't forget to share it and leave a 5-star review. See ya.
Bye, guys.